Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video I am going to be showing you, or rather I'm going to be teaching you the basics of Photoshop. So it's going to be like an introduction for people who have never used Adobe Photoshop before, or maybe you've been using a different software and you're trying to transition into Photoshop, or maybe you're just even entirely new to graphic design and you want to learn how to use Photoshop. So I'm going to be trying to break down the software in a very simple way, and my aim for this video is that at the end you'll be able to at least make a very simple flyer in Photoshop. So we're going to do a little project at the end of this video. Alright, so without talking too much, let's just start. So if you're looking at my screen, which I believe you are, you're going to see the home page of Photoshop. So once you open up your Photoshop software, this is the first thing you're going to see, especially if you haven't opened Photoshop before. This is what it's going to look like. So this is the home page, and on the home page we have the file, edit, image, layer, type, select, filter, view, plugins, window, and help. So this is called the menu bar. The menu bar is like it has everything inside Photoshop. You can get it from this menu bar, but we're going to talk about it further when we go further into this video. So this PS sign, if you click on it, you're going to enter the Photoshop software. Alright, so this is the Photoshop workspace. When you click on that, so let's go back to the home page, and this new file, if you click on it, a dialog box is going to open up, and what it shows us is it gives us the control to determine what type of canvas that we want to work on. Alright, so in this first place we have recent, and these are all the different canvases that I've worked on in the past. If we go here to saved, it's going to show you the different workspaces that I have saved. Alright, if we go to photo, it's going to show you different default workspaces. The same thing goes for print. Let's say you want to design an A4, alright, or A3 or A5 or whatever. There's art and illustration, there's web, there's mobile, there's film and video. So there are a bunch of different templates you can work with. Alright, now if you look towards the right hand side, you're going to see preset details. So let's come to A4. So what it's going to show you, first of all, it's going to show you the title, so you can name it as anything that you want. And then if you go to width is basically the size of the width of the canvas. You have the width and the height, and you can choose, if you go to the right hand side, you can choose pixels, inches, centimeters, millimeters, points, or picas. So these are the different measurement guides that you can use to set your canvas. Alright, so I usually use pixels. Orientation shows you if you want it in a portrait size or a landscape. So whichever one is highlighted blue is the one that's selected. So currently it's in a portrait mode. Artboards. Now artboards are basically another word for canvas. So you can have multiple canvases in a single workspace. So if you click on the artboard, it's going to have multiple workspaces. So but we don't want that. Your resolution is the quality of the image. So basically for social media flyers and stuff that's just going to be on your screen, you can use 72. That is the 72 is the resolution that is basically used for screen. It's the screen resolution. But if you're designing something that's going to be printed out, then you can use 300. Alright, then if you look beside it, you look at, there's pixels per inch and there's pixels per centimeter. So usually we use pixels per inch, which is basically saying the number of pixels you have in 1 inch. Alright, so 72 means you have 72 pixels in every inch of that image. Alright, so that is the resolution. If we go down to color mode, you're going to see bitmap, grayscale, RGB, CMYK, and lap color. So I basically use RGB and CMYK. I use RGB when I'm working on something that is going to be for social media. You're going to share it online, and then I use CMYK when I'm working on something that I want to print. All right. So I usually leave it on 8-bit, 16-bit, then 16 and 32, but 8-bit works pretty fine. And then you can use this to change the color of your background. So when you open your file, if you want it to have a white background, you can make it white or black. You can make it a transparent, or you can choose a custom color. Alright. For color profile, you can leave it as working RGB, and you can leave the pixel aspect ratio at square pixels. Okay, well, let's close this for now. This is also called, there's a second way to create a workspace, which is clicking on open. When you click on open, you can basically open a file that you've already saved before. But if you're opening Photoshop for the first time, then you won't have any files, so you can't open anything. But if you download the file from somewhere, or someone sends you a PSD file, this is how you can open it. Alright, just click on open and select the file on your laptop. Alright, so now let's create a file and head into Photoshop. So you click on new file. We're going to come here. You make sure you select pixels. You're going to click on 1080 by 1080. So 1080 by 1080 is the traditional size for social media flyers. Your resolution will be 72 pixels per inch. RGB color mode 8-bit, white background. And we're going to click on create. And as you can see, our canvas is white. Alright, so when you open Photoshop, when you create a file, this is what it is going to look like. Now, Photoshop Workspace is divided into a bunch of different sections. At the very top, we have the menu bar. So the menu bar has a lot of menus that control basically everything in Photoshop. We have file, edit, image, layer, type, select, filter, view, plugins, window, and help. Alright, so everything in Photoshop is controlled by these things at the top. You can find every single thing up here. Under the menu bar, we have the options bar. So the options bar works hand in hand with the tools. The tools are at the left hand side here. Everything here by the left are the tools. The tools and the options bar work hand in hand. So all the different tools, when you click on a tool, the options bar changes. So if we click on another tool, you can see that it changes. Click on another tool, it changes. Click on another tool, it changes. So they work hand in hand. Alright, another area is the tools. So the tools are basically, like the name implies, is they are the things you use to perform certain functions. Just like when we have tools in real life, like scissors is a tool, and we use scissors to cut any material, paper or anything. So your tools have different functions that they carry out in Photoshop. Another part of Photoshop, at the left, at the right hand side, are the panels. So we have the properties panel, adjustment panel. You can also come there windows. Alright, there are also windows. We have layers window, channels, parts. So they carry out a bunch of different functions as well. Okay, and then finally at the bottom of Photoshop, we have the status bar. So the status bar tells us the status of the images in Photoshop. Alright, so as we continue along, you'll notice that the status bar will keep on changing. Currently what it's showing is 66.67%, and what that means is how much we are zoomed in. So if we zoom in more, you can see that the percentage is increasing, but if we zoom out, it's actually reducing. And also you can see that there's only one layer. We can also change that. We can change what the status bar shows us. So if we choose document sizes, it shows us the size of the document is 3.34 MB. If we choose document profile, it will show us that the profile is sRGB. If we choose the the dimensions, you see 1080p by 1080p with a resolution of 72 pixels per inch. All right, so that's what the status bar shows. It shows the status of the document. All right, so now let's talk about the tools. So one thing you need to understand in Photoshop is you don't really need to know how every single thing works when you're getting started, because Photoshop keeps on improving every day. New updates keep on coming out every year, and so it's not about knowing every single thing. It's about knowing as you grow. All right, the more you learn, the more you spend time in Photoshop, you're going to learn more and more and more. So I am not going to explain every single tool here because it's going to be overwhelming if you're just starting out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to explain the major tools. All right, the major important tools. All right, so we are going to start with the move tool. So the very first tool here on the tools panel is the move tool. And if you just hover on it, if you place your cursor on it, on any tool, you are going to see a brief description of what that tool does. So as you can see, it says that the move tool moves a selection or a layer. All right, so that's what it does. It moves things around. Anytime you import something into Photoshop, the move tool is going to move it around. So let's import something actually, and let's just see how it works. Let's import this image. Okay. All right, so we're on the move tool, and we can see that I can move this image around. Why? Because I'm using the move tool. All I have to do is hold my left the left part of my mouse, left click, and just move it around. Or you can use your touchpad, hold it and drag. All right, so that's what the move tool does. Very simple. You're going to be using it a lot in Photoshop. The second tool, also the shortcut for the move tool is V. So instead of coming all the way up here to click on the move tool, just press V on your keyboard and you're going to get the move tool. Okay. Now the second tool we're going to talk about is the rectangular marquee tool. All right, and also pay attention. Look at this options bar here. The options bar here. You can see that once I change from the move tool to the marquee tool, that the options bar changes. All right. So on the move tool, we have some functions here. You can actually align the elements. All right. So now it is this picture we're working with. If I click this, you can see that it's aligned to the middle. If I click this, it's also aligned to the center. If I click this, it goes to the edge. If I click this, it goes to the other edge. If I click this, it goes down. If I click this, it goes up. All right. So these are the alignment tools we can use to align any elements that we import using the move tool. Okay, there are some other options here, but let's go on to the rectangular marquee tool. So for the rectangular marquee tool, what we use it to do is we use it to make rectangular selections. Okay, so all you have to do is right click and drag, and just like that we've made a selection. Okay, right click and drag and we made a selection. So I just noticed that our layers panel is not here, so let me bring it. So you go to Windows and you go to layers. Okay, so that might be confusing at first, but I'm going to explain how the windows work. Okay, basically your layers is every element on your canvas, every element in your screen, you're going to see it on your layers. Alright, so back to the rectangular marquee tool. Now that I've made this rectangular selection, I can actually cut out this image. I can cut it out. So to copy is Ctrl J. Alright, copy is Ctrl J. Now what is the shortcut for the move tool? The shortcut is V. And then now we can now move this. Okay, so you can see now that we have this, a duplicate of this. How do we get it? We use the rectangular marquee tool to make a rectangular selection, and then we duplicated that selection out. Okay, so that's what you can do with the rectangular marquee tool. Alright, if you right click on the rectangular marquee tool, you're going to see other options. There's the elliptical marquee tool. It does the same thing. The difference is that it does it in a circular format like this. Alright, to clear a selection, if you make a selection and you don't want it anymore, all you have to do is press Ctrl D. Press Ctrl D and the selection will disappear. Alright, so if you go to the options bar, you're going to see 4 sets of boxes. This first box now means that you can just simply make a selection. That's what it means. Okay, the second one, now you're seeing 2 boxes joined together. What that means is you can make multiple selections and they are going to merge together, as you can see. The third one, what it means is that you can make a selection but it's going to subtract from the already existing selection. Okay, as you can see, as I'm making more selection, it's subtracting. And then the last one means that when you make 2 selections, the intersect of those 2 selections, what is going to be available. So if I make this and I make this, the intersect, that is the space where both selections where they meet, that's what is going to be left. All right, so it might be sounding a bit complex, but with time you'll get more used to it. So the next two, and then the shortcut for the rectangular marquee tool is M. Okay, remember the shortcut for the move tool is V, and then the shortcut for the rectangular marquee tool is M. So the next tool we're going to talk about is the lasso tool. Okay, the shortcut for the lasso tool is L. Alright, so what the lasso tool does is you can use it to make a selection by just drawing around. So I can draw, and once I'm done drawing, that drawing will turn into a selection. Very simple. I can draw here, it will turn into a selection. That's what it does. If you right click on it, you're going to see other selection tools. Let's talk about the polygonal lasso tool. So what this does is you can right click and then click again, and with each click it's just going to be making straight lines, and when you come back to the end to where you started, you're going to see a circle. Once you see that circle, just click and you have a selection. So all these are selection tools. All right, in Photoshop, making selection is very important because a lot of times you can't really do anything until you've made a selection. Okay, we're going to talk about the next tool, which is the quick selection tool. Like I said, to clear a selection is Ctrl D. Okay, for the quick selection tool, what it does is it selects quickly. Okay, like the name implies. Okay, let's hide this. So with our quick selection tool selected, the shortcut is W, by the way, for the quick selection tool. You can just right click and draw a circle. And what is it doing? You can see that it is selecting the subject of this image. Now we can actually remove the background. Why? Because we've made a selection of the man and a selection of the washing machine. So that is what the quick selection tool helps you achieve. It helps you select things very easily. Okay, you can press Ctrl D to deselect. If you right click, you're also going to see the magic wand tool. It's also a selection tool. All you have to do is click and it's going to actually select a particular area, but it's not as effective as a quick selection tool. We also have the object selection tool. So the object selection tool, you click once, you right click, you left click, sorry, and let's wait for it. It takes time to work. And just like that, we have a selection. Okay, so that is how it works. The next tool we are going to look at is the crop tool. Now if you have a phone, you probably know what the crop tool is. You're probably familiar with the crop tool. Now the crop tool is simply crops an image, right? Like the name implies. You can simply just crop an image. Okay, so that's what it does. Let's press Ctrl Z to undo. So by the way, to undo and to redo is Ctrl Z is to undo and Ctrl Shift Z is to redo. Okay, so in case you make a mistake and you want to go back. The next tool we're going to look at is the eyedropper tool. And what we use it to do is we use it to select color. So with the eyedropper tool selected, by the way, the shortcut for the eyedropper tool is I. With the eyedropper tool selected, all you have to do is click on anything and that color is selected for you. If you come down to the bottom of the tools panel, you're going to see two squares with colors. One color is white, the other color is brown. That color that is brown is because we use the eyedropper tool to select the brown color. If we select the washing machine, it's going to turn to somewhat of black or gray. Okay, that's what the eyedropper tool does. It helps us select color. If you also come to your right, to the right hand side where you have this color panel, you can see that whatever color you select is going to change that color panel. Okay, so that's what the eyedropper tool does. The shortcut is I. Let's move on to the brush tool. The brush tool is a very important tool in Photoshop. Okay, so to understand how the brush tool works, we have to create a new layer. So come down to the bottom right, you're going to see a plus icon. Click on it and you've created a new layer. Now let's hide this image. So the brush tool, we can use the brush tool to do a variety of things. We can use it to draw. Okay, I can use it to draw like this. Now if you right click, you're going to get this display menu where we can increase or reduce the size of the brush, and we can increase or reduce the hardness of the brush. So this is a brush that's very hard, and then if we right click and reduce the hardness, you can see the difference. Okay, that's the difference between hard and soft. Now another way to increase the size of the brush is hold your alt, right click on your mouse and drag to the right or left to increase or reduce. Now if you drag up or down, it's going to increase or reduce the hardness of that brush. Another way is to use your bracket keys. If you use the left bracket key, the brush is going to reduce, and if you use your right bracket key, the brush is going to increase in size. So that is how the brush tool works. Okay, if you come to the top here on the options bar, we can actually reduce the opacity of our brush, and we can increase it. We can reduce and we can adjust the flow of the brush and the smoothing of the brush. The more time you spend in Photoshop, the more you understand what those things mean. The brush can be a complex tool sometimes. If we come here, we can also increase the size and the hardness, and there are a bunch of different types of brushes that we can play around with. Okay, but that is the basic introduction to the brush tool. The next tool we'll talk about is the eraser tool, and as the name implies, it erases whatever you've done. So like this, I can erase what I've done with the brush tool very simply. Okay, now the next tool we're going to talk about is the gradient tool. The gradient tool is simply used for gradients. Okay, all you have to do is click and drag, left click and drag, and it's going to give you a gradient. If you go to the top on the options bar, click on it and you'll see different types of gradients. You can see the basics. So these are the basic gradients. They are blues. So all these are already gradients that are already given to you naturally in Photoshop. So if you have Photoshop, you're going to have all these gradients already. But you can also create your own. How do you create yours? You click on this Okay, so to create yours, come here to the layers panel and double click on the thumbnail. Then you can come here and click on that gradient again. Come down here to this lever at the bottom, click on it, click on color, and you can choose the color that you want. Click on OK. Come to the other lever, choose the color that you want. So that is how you create your own custom gradient. The gradient is, there are a bunch of things you can do with this gradient too, so we're not really going to spend too much time on it. But as you spend more time in Photoshop, you're going to learn more about it. Okay, that's the basics about the gradient. The next tool we'll talk about is the text tool. So the text tool is a very important tool, because what is the point of design if you're not passing information? And how can you pass information without writing text? Okay, of course there's visual representation, but text is also very important. So for the text, all you have to do is left click, and you're going to get a text box, and you come here to the options bar and click on this good sign, and just like that we have text. Now we can change the color of this text by double clicking on it to highlight it, then come to the options bar, click on black, click on that black, and then you can change the text to any color. So let's change it to white. Okay, so now this text tool, we can change the font, we can change the size, we can change almost anything we want to change. Okay, but what is the simplest way to do this? We'll go down up to our Windows panel, click on Windows, and then we are going to look for character. The character window is going to appear, and with this character window we can modify our text or our type or our character. If we want to increase the size, we come here and we can increase the size just like that. If we want to increase the tracking is the space between each letter, we can increase the tracking. Let's reduce the size a bit. Okay, can increase the tracking, we can make it all caps lock. Whatever effect you want, you can change it. We can change the font here, so whatever font you have, we can just use it. Okay, so whatever effect you want to do on the text can be done in the character panel and in the paragraph panel. Okay, another way to write text is to select the text tool. The shortcut for the text tool is T, by the way. Select the text tool, left click and drag to create a text box. Now you now have a defined space for your text. Now we can also change the orientation of this text. As you can see, it's center aligned. If we go to paragraph, you can make it left aligned, center aligned, right aligned. We can make it justified. Alright, so that's how the text tool works. If you right click on the text tool icon, you're going to see the vertical type tool. And let's hide this text. What the vertical type tool does is it writes in a vertical way. So you can see how it came out. Instead of writing horizontally, you're going to get vertical text. Isn't that amazing? So the next tool we'll look at is the rectangle tool. One of the most used tools in Photoshop is the rectangle tool. All you have to do is left click and drag, and you have a rectangle. As simple as that. You can adjust it anyhow you want, increase the width and height. The properties panel shows you all the things you can edit in the rectangle. Okay, so from the color of the rectangle, okay, to the corners, you can make the corners rounded. Okay, there are a bunch of things you can do, but as time proceeds, you're going to learn more and more about the rectangle tool. If you right click on the rectangle tool icon, you're going to see the ellipse tool, which is you can basically use it to draw a circle or an ellipse. But if you want a perfectly round circle, hold the shift and drag, and you're going to get a perfectly round circle. The same thing goes for the rectangle tool. If you want a perfectly round rectangle, hold shift and drag. You're going to get a perfectly round. You're going to get a square. Okay. Now we're going to look at the hand tool. The hand tool, the short form is H. What it does is it helps us move our canvas around. As simple as that. Then finally the zoom tool. With the zoom tool, if you left click and drag, you can zoom in or zoom out. Okay, that's what the zoom tool does. Now at the bottom of the tools panel, you're going to see these two boxes which I talked about. So the black color, that is the foreground color, and then the white is called the background color, right? So to interchange them, you can press X on your keyboard and it's going to interchange. Okay, to change the color, you can also click on it and a color panel is going to come out, and you can change it to any color you want and click OK, and you see that the color has changed. All right, now also for zoom, you can press Ctrl O to zoom to fill up your workspace. And let's say you want to zoom to size, to fill to screen, Ctrl O does that. Now we've talked about all the tools. The next thing I want to look at is the menu bar, which is this top bar, file, edit, image, and so on. That's what I want to talk about now. Okay, so let's start with the file. Now in almost every software you're going to see this file option, and even if it's not a design software, even if it's as simple as Microsoft Word, you're going to see file. And when you see file, what comes to your mind? Basically saving the document. Okay, saving the file, opening a new file, exporting a file. So that's what is available in this file menu. All right, so here you have new, Control N. So you can create a new, so you can, if you click on it, you're going to create a new file, a new document. All right, if you click on open, what you're trying to do is you're trying to open an already existing document. All right, if you click on um if you click on close, that means you want to close this document. If you click on save, we can save this document. We can actually save it as a Photoshop file, as a large document format, as a PDF, or as a TIFF. So those are the documents we can save it as. Those are the formats we can save it as. We can save a copy. So what save a copy does is that if we've already saved this document and we make more changes, or let's say we just want a duplicate of the same documents, that's what you can do with save a copy. So you can have a backup of the same file. Save as is to, let's say you've saved the document and you make changes to it, and you want to save the changes, but you don't want to save it as, you still want to maintain the original document you had while also having a second document that has those new changes. So you can save as. Okay, that might sound confusing, but it makes sense to you eventually. Export is used to export your work. So saving is saving the file, saving the document, but to export it is just exporting the image. All right, so you can quickly export as a PNG. So you're just going to save it in your computer as a PNG file, or you can export as. It's going to create it, open up a new dialog box, and then you can come here to the top right. You can save it as a PNG or a JPG or a GIF or whatever you want. There are just a bunch of options here, and there's no need to just jump into it for now. All right, so that's what you can export as basically. Then you can place embedded. What that means is, let's say you want to bring in something into your laptop. So let's go to, if you want to bring in this logo, and just like that we've placed it in. So if you want to bring in a document and you don't want to drag and drop, or you don't want to copy and paste, you can just place. Okay, so that's basically the summary of file. Now let's go to edit. Under edits, basically we have undo and redo. So like I said, undo is Ctrl Z and to redo is Ctrl Shift Z. Okay, cut is Ctrl X. So if you want to cut something, it's Ctrl X. If you want to copy something, it's Ctrl C. If you want to paste something, it's Ctrl V. All right. So those are the major things under the edits. There are other stuff that you're going to be more familiar with. So there's this thing called transform. Okay, to transform means to be able to change, to scale it, basically to be able to change the orientation of the element. So basically scale it down, scale it up, rotate it. All that is possible once you've transformed. And also the shortcut for transform is Ctrl T. Okay, so you're going to be using transform a lot. Let's go into the image. There are actually a bunch of other things under edit, but like I said, with time you're going to be more accustomed to them. Under image, basically you're just trying to edit an image, so you can adjust the image. There are a bunch of different adjustments. You can adjust the brightness and the contrast of the image, the levels of the image, the curves, exposure, vibrance, hue and saturation, color balance, and so on and so forth. You can adjust the image in a bunch of different ways in Photoshop. You can check the image size. So this is the current image size, 1080 pixels by 1080 pixels for the width and height. The resolution is 72. Okay, so this is the size of our image. So that's basically what we have under image. If we go to layer, layer basically shows us all the different things that we can edit under our layer section. So we can create a new layer, we can duplicate a layer, we can delete a layer, we can export a layer. Okay, we can rename a layer, we can fill a layer, we can add a layer mask. There are a bunch of things we can do under our layer menu. Now let's move to the type menu. Like the name implies, type means text. So under this menu, basically if you want to edit your text, you can do it from here. Alright, but to be honest, I don't really use it a lot. On the select menu, we can basically make a bunch of different types of selections. So we can deselect layers. Like I said, to deselect is Ctrl D. Okay, no, to deselect a selection here is Ctrl D. So we can make a different types of selections with this, but selecting is it's kind of advanced depending on how complex the selection is. So some of these tools here are actually advanced, like color range. Okay, let's go to filter. Under filter, basically, how do I explain filters? Filters are like effects that we can apply to our elements in Photoshop, like blur. Blur is an effect. Okay, so this LG logo, let's apply a blur. So come to your filter, click on blur. There are different types of blur. Let's use Gaussian blur and click on OK. You can see that LG logo now is blurry. That's what filters are. Okay, that's what filters are. There's camera raw filter. There's a bunch of edits you can make with filters. So you're basically going to learn it as time passes. Under view, basically view is what are you seeing on your screen. Okay, so if you want to zoom in, zoom out, you come to view. If you want to add guides or rulers or whatever you want, whatever thing you're seeing on your screen that you don't like, you might be able to fix it or change it using your view menu. Okay, plugins, I've not really used it, to be honest. Now the almighty Windows menu. Your Windows basically controls everything you see. Why? Because everything carries out different functions, but you can find those things inside your window. Okay, so for example, your layers is inside window, your gradient is inside window, your character panel, your character styles, adjustment layers, actions, your brush, everything in Photoshop, almost everything basically, can be found in your windows. If there's a particular panel that you're looking for that you cannot find, all you have to do is go to your windows and you're going to find it. Okay, so let's say if I click on actions now, you can see the actions panel. The actions panel has come out. If I click on windows, if I click on what do I click on now? um What's anything? If I click on adjustment, look at it. Okay, so that's the windows. Okay, now we've talked about your tools, we've talked about the menu bar, we've been talking about the options bar in correlation with the tools. I basically talked about the status bar at the beginning. So what I want to talk about now is the panels, and you can find panels at the right hand side most of the time. Okay, so we're just going to talk about the ones that we can see here. Color now, as the name implies, is color. We can just use the color panel to select any color we want. Okay, use it to select any color you want. Swatches is also like color, but my understanding of it is it saves color, right? So for example, if we click on blue, comes to swatches, um you can see that the very first color is that blue that we selected, so it saves the colors. Adjustments now, there are a bunch of different adjustments. Like I said, you can make a bunch of adjustments to an image. Okay, we have the hue saturation adjustment layer. We have the what that does now is once you click on an adjustment layer, it's going to show on the properties layer, on the properties panel. Hue adjustment layer, you can use it to change the color of an element, so you can see how it's changing the color of everything. Okay, brightness and contrast, like the name implies, you can reduce the brightness or increase the brightness of something. Okay, curves, the curves is used to create contrasts by increasing the highlights and reducing the shadows. It's a bit complex, to be honest. Levels, I honestly don't even know what levels is used for. I use it, but I don't know what it's used for. I know how stupid that sounds, but sometimes when I'm editing, when I'm designing, I will just be like, let me see what levels will do for me, and I use it and it makes sense. But I don't truly understand what it does. So let's move on. So there are a bunch of different adjustment layers, and as time permits, as you increase your skill, you're going to understand each and every one of them. But it's not something that you want to start cramming right now. Okay, even me, yeah, like vibrance now, I've never used it before. Selective color, I have hardly used it before. There are a bunch of adjustments I've never used. Okay, so adjustment layer is basically used to adjust images. Um, the next panel I want to talk about is the layers panel. Let me bring it out. The layers panel is arguably the most important panel. Why? Because the layers panel, it controls what you see on your screen. Okay, the layers, Photoshop, everything you is made up of layers. Okay, so to make a design, it has to be made up of layers, and those layers are stacked up upon each other. Now, for example, this LG logo that is blurred is at the top. If you look at your layers, it's at the very top. You can hide it by clicking on the eye. You can hide it, it's at the top. Under it, what do we have? We have shapes, these two ellipses. Okay, under that, what do we have? We have these two rectangles. Under that, what do we have? We have text, this horizontal text. Under that, what do we have? We have this other text as well. Under that, what do we have? We have this text as well. Under that, what do we have? We have these gradients. So you can see the way layers work. Everything is stacked up on top of each other. So that's how layers work. Everything you bring into Photoshop, everything you create in Photoshop is going to show on your layers panel. If we unhide the image at the back, you're not going to see it. But if we drag it to the top, you're going to see it. Okay, that's how your layers work. On the layers panel, we can also see plus. What it does at the bottom is it creates a new layer. You can see this delete layer, we can delete it. You can see this, you can group layers. So if we click on a layer and press shift and click on another layer and press on this group, on this file icon, it's going to group those two layers. Okay, this, if you right click on it, you're going to see all the adjustment layers I talked about. If you click on this, it's going to create a layer mask. Layer mask is basically you hiding a layer or some part of the layer. We're not going to talk about that right now. And then finally we have effects, blending options or layer styles. Okay, now let's talk about blending options or layer styles. So what are blending options? They are basically a bunch of effects that we can do to an image. Okay, so let's select this guy, this image of the guy, the image of the guy and the washing machine. So there are two ways to get into layer styles. Number one is to double click on the layer and layer styles dialog box will open, or you can right click on that layer and look for layer styles blending options. Click on blending options and it's going to open up. Now these are a bunch of effects that you can add to an element or an image. So we have bevel and emboss. You can see what it has done to this image. What bevel and emboss has done, it has added depth to the image. Let's unclick it. There are a lot of functions. You can edit it however you want. You click on stroke, it has added a stroke to this image. You click on inner stroke, it has added an inner stroke. It's very subtle, so you won't really see it. Click on inner glue. If you notice there's some kind of glue at the edge. Okay, satin, I've actually never used this satin before, but this is the effect. We have color overlay. Color overlay changes the entire color of the image that you're editing. There's gradient overlay, which does the same thing just for gradient. There's pattern, which puts a pattern there. There's outer glue, and then there's drop shadow. So that's what you can do with your layer styles or blending options. There are a bunch of different edits. You can manipulate it however you want. Okay. Now before we embark into our project, there's one final thing I want to talk about. Now if you're observant, you'll be noticed that I've been moving panels up and down. Why am I able to do that? Because in Photoshop you can customize your panel, you can customize your workspace, sorry. So you can move panels anyhow you want. So I can drag out all these things, I can drag them out, I can just scatter them anyhow I want. You can do that in Photoshop. I can scatter everything. Even these tools, I can scatter it. I can scatter the tools. I can compress it like this. Okay. So you can customize your workspace. You can arrange all these things in a way that works for you. Now, what if you scatter everything and you're now scared of, how do I arrange it back? Simply go to the right hand side, click on the icon, and then click on Essentials, Reset Essentials, and everything goes back to the way it was. Okay. Now me personally, I have a workspace I've already created and I call this Stefan because that's my name. This is my original workspace. This is the workspace I use when I'm designing. So your workspace does not have to be exactly like my own. You can just, as time goes on, you keep on editing the way your workspace looks because you start figuring out, oh, I want this panel to be here. Oh, I want this to be here. So the more you design, the more you customize your workspace. But this is how mine is naturally. But for our project, I'm going to use essentials so that we are going to have a similar workspace and so that you don't get lost. All right. So let's start the project. All right. So let's begin our project. So I'm just going to go to your home page and then Click on new file. We're going to use 1080p by 1080p as the width and height, resolution 72 pixels per inch. Make sure your settings are the same and then click on create. Now we're going to bring in our background. I'm going to give you all these assets. It's going to be in the description box, so do well to download it and design along with me. That's the best way to learn. Alright, remember I said my goal is that at the end of this video you'll be able to make your own design, so make sure you design along with me. So let's drag in this background into Photoshop. Now you're going to hold Alt, you're going to left click and drag. Okay, then you're going to hold Shift and move it up, and then you click on enter. Then next you're going to bring in the man. You're going to hold Alt and drag down, then take him down, click on enter. Next we're going to bring in our logo, and then we're going to drag, press enter. Now I don't want this LG that is under the logo, so what am I going to do? Click on M on your keyboard. It's going to give you your rectangular marquee tool. You can zoom in and then we select the LG. Now in order to edit this LG, we have to make sure that this logo is a raster image. Now if we come here to the layers panel, we're going to see there's this icon on it on the thumbnail. What that means is that it's a smart object, it's not a raster image. You can see smart object thumbnail. So to change that, we're going to right click and click on rasterize. Now that it is rasterized, we can press backspace and that LG has disappeared or you deleted it. So press Ctrl D to deselect, press Ctrl O to zoom out. Okay, now the last thing that is left is text. In case you're confused about smart object and raster images, a smart object is an element or an image that retains information. Okay, so when you make edits to it, it actually retains that information. You can come back and undo what you've done, but on a raster image, once you've made an edit, it is permanent. Okay, like as I've removed this LG from under the logo, I can't do it. If I make other changes, I can no longer undo it. Okay, but as time goes on, you'll understand better the difference between raster image, smart objects, vector images. Okay, I can't really cover everything in this video, and the video is already getting to an hour if it hasn't passed an hour. So the last thing for this simple design is our text. So click on T on your keyboard. You're going to see Clash Grotesque. Left click. Now come here and reduce the tracking. Click on 0, make sure it's 0. Okay. We're going to type in our copy, which is make washing a breeze with LG washing machine. Okay, you can see that the text is all capital letter and we don't want that, so I'll go to Windows and we'll bring in the properties. We'll bring in, click on properties. Okay, now we're going to unselect this to make sure that it is no longer all capital letters. Alright, now we're going to press Ctrl T to transform it. We're going to reduce the size a bit. Now let's change this font to, let's change it to Poppins. Poppins medium. Okay, medium is too much. Poppins regular. And then the LG washing machine, let's add emphasis to it. So we'll change the color. Click on this color. Click on the logo. So it gets the same color of pink or red. You can make it a bit lighter, and then we can change it from regular to medium. Okay, and with that we've made a very simple flyer. So hopefully at the end of this video you've learned a bunch of things that you can use to start making your own very simple designs. I'd encourage you to go to my YouTube channel, and I actually have a bunch of videos that are flyers that actually hold your hand and walk you through them step by step. And that's the best way to learn as a newbie. You have to learn by replicating designs. So I have a bunch of playlists. I have a bunch of videos where I actually design step by step, and I also give you the resources so you can also design along with me. So you're going to see a link. It's going to pop up on the top right. So just click on it to watch. There's a playlist of videos that can help you. Click on it, and thank you for watching up until this point. I'm grateful. I hope you learned something new, and do well to like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.